All right. Greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Storyteller's Corner. And yes, Cortex, we should do a Backrooms live soon. Um, I have a bit of unexpectedly free time this morning, as my younger son has decided he wanted to take an early nap, so I laid him down about 15 minutes ago, and I'm going to take the opportunity to do a quick little, a brief live broadcast, not in my usual slightly calmer demeanor. I'm going to open things up by asking uh, if anyone here is familiar with the concept of sensitivity readers. And I know I've touched briefly upon this in a prior live broadcast, but now I have gone from the level of mildly annoyed to superbly annoyed with these privileged, self righteous, condescending, exceedingly liberal arts degree holding wackadoos who think they have the right to take any and every piece of beloved fiction, regardless of its genre, its source, or its age, and decide, well, we want to make this updated for a modern audience. Modern audiences suck. All right, they suck dripping donkey cock. And I'm tired of being polite about it and being reserved and quiet and mousy. The modern sensibilities that people drag around and throw on top of everything that's been decent created in the artistic space over the last 200 years plus can suck my arse. All right, plant its lips securely, suction around my sphincter, and just vacuum up whatever I spray out of my back end. I'm tired of it. Anytime that a creator says, upon my death, please do not monkey about with the material that I have created, because I have crafted it with a specific understanding that this was my artistic vision. You don't get to poke your great big fucking conch into the middle of it and decide that you know best, that you know better than the person who created the material to begin with. This shite started in under got under my telescope, as it were, back in 2017 when S.E. Hinton, the writer of The Outsiders, had to go on to Twitter and defend her own stance, her clarification that the character she created for that story, Ponyboy, was not, as so many people were trying to claim, a gay character. She said, no, no, he wasn't. That was never my intention. If you're reading into that, you're wrong. In the recent instance with Roald Dahl's children's works, we have these sensitivity readers who have come out and said, well, we think that the language should be softened and we should make it more palatable for younger readers. Why? Were younger readers clamoring for you to change the language? No, they weren't, because they don't know, because they haven't read the material. And if they have read the material as originally presented, kudos to those kids, and they've got a proper understanding of what the material is supposed to read like. As for these newer people who have decided that they know better than the actual original author, they can fuck right off. Suck start a shotgun. I do not care if you're offended by my saying that. That is my genuine feeling towards this. What about our feelings, people's feelings? How about the feelings of the people who actually perform in the art? Because a lot of us are sick and fucking tired of being told we have to either get in line or get against the wall. How about you take a turn staring at that brick? It's nonsense. It's patent fucking nonsense. I'm also sick and tired of the holier than thou folks who work for the beast of Bezos, fucking Amazon, deciding that they can go in and stealth edit your manuscript that you upload to Kindle KDP and put onto the marketplace. And then later, when the author discovers that their manuscript has been edited by somebody against their wishes, when the whole point of the KDP program is supposed to be that the creator of the art has artistic control over every piece of material that goes between the covers of that book, that control is ripped out of their hands and thrown over to somebody who's got blue hair and fucking weirdo tattooed all over them. No idea about how to artistically create something of their own, but fuck around with the material that was slaved over by someone who has an actual artistic merit, a, a bone of creativity in their fucking body. They're the one who put in the effort. They're the one who did the outlining. They're the one who did the creation of the world space that was within the confines of that text. That author is the one who created that material. And the KDP program is supposed to be very hands off. That's how it's presented to authors. Do you want control over your narrative? Do you want to be the one who, from top to bottom, decides what's going to be presented to the marketplace? You can do it through the KDP program. That's the selling point. That's what they convince you of to try and get you to sign exclusively through Amazon's distribution avenues. However, you've got dozens of authors who are discovering later on down the road that somebody got their hands on that manuscript, and before deciding to put it onto the marketplace, they monkeyed around with it. They edited the language within the text in order to make it more modern audience appealing. Fuck your modern audience appeal. The person who actually created that text, they're the one who is supposed to have control over it. It's false advertising. It's bullshit. And you owe them their money back for any programming, for any editing, any marketing services that they paid for, because you sold them on a false promise and you broke your fucking contract. Now that I've got that out of my system, how is everyone? It's absolute bollocks. And back to the sensitivity readers, you've got this small clutch of them now who work over at Viking Press and who work for the Roald Dahl literary estate, who've decided that their feelings were hurt when numerous publishing industry or publishing news articles were released online in various places, saying that these people, pointing out these people are ruining the material. And they're even going after The Guardian, all right, a left-wing rag that actually tried to promote and defend the sensitivity readers and the absolute butchery that they're performing on these works. They're going after they're talking about going after in court publications like The Guardian for deriding and insulting the important work that they do. What important work are these people doing? They're dragging up old creative material and hacking it to pieces because they wanted to align more closely with their ideological language policing. Piss on that. You've got no right to bitch. You did something foolish. People pointed out that what you were doing was foolish. Perhaps you should accept that you were being, foolish. It would be like me going up to a crack addict and saying, "Hey, you've made a mess of your life by smoking crack," and them standing up and leaning at a 45-degree angle, also known by junkies as first position, and deciding, "You can't talk to me like that. My feces is hurt. I'm offended." Fuck your offense. You were smoking the glass dick. I have historically tried to be measured about these things. I don't tend to be the guy who hops on and screams and yells and foams at the mouth about much of anything outside of the Philadelphia Eagles when they lose a game to the Dallas Cowboys. That makes me want to put my head through a wall. All right. But I get so tired of this delusional fucking nonsense. I cannot take it with a placid, glassy demeanor for my entire life. I'm 40 years old. I've got a mortgage. I've got a full time job. I've got kids. And I've got certain convictions that it really doesn't do me any good to be mousy about anymore. Because the attitude of, all right, just leave well enough alone. You're not poking your conch into my personal business, so I'm going to leave it alone. That doesn't work anymore because these fuckers continue to push and push and poke and prod. They don't take a hint when you say, I want nothing to do with it. They come right up in your business and say, oh, but you must have a piece of it. You must be involved. We're going to drag you kicking and screaming into it. All right, fine, fuckwit. When the scream that comes out of my mouth is to tell you to go fuck yourself, and my elbow collapses your fucking throat, then you'll understand why I told you to leave me alone in the first place. These are the sort of people who do not understand the whole purpose of the imagery behind the Gadsden flag, the timber rattlesnake, the don't tread on me. The timber rattlesnake, all right, as observed by Jonathan Gadsden, who was a member of the First Continental Congress and was an avid zoologist, an avid amateur zoologist. He was fascinated by the timber rattlesnake because the creature could detect vibrations in the ground approaching it from a distance of about 200 feet. The timber rattlesnake detects motion that is moving toward it, and it raises its rattle and shakes it as a warning, as a step the fuck off, get out of my territory, this is my arena, and if you come in here, you're looking for trouble. You're begging for trouble. These sensitivity readers have been begging for trouble for way too fucking long. They need to go away. Well, but we need to make sure that the language is soft and that we don't offend someone's sensibilities. What about the rest of us whose sensibilities you don't give a right shit about? The rest of us who've been reading this material and sharing it with our children and our grandchildren and our little ones for decades, for generations. Where was your consideration for the fifis of the people who've actually enjoyed this material for time out of mind? You don't give two shits about them, now do you? And they're the ones who are purchasing the materials and the merchandise and the movies for decades in order to make sure that material stays relevant, stays alive, and stays afloat. This is exactly what the House of Mouse did to Star Wars when they bent it over and had their way with it. Because they thought, well, we've got to get new blood. We've got to get fresh blood in here. We've got to bring in a new audience. Your new audience is busy pirating this shite anyway. According to Nielsen Bookscan Analytics, a group that focuses explicitly and exclusively on data analysis of book sales, movie ticket sales, television ratings, the most common group of people who pirate material are liberal, college-educated women and men in the age range of 25 to 45. The exact people who you're trying to make all these movies and these books and adjust them for this modern audience, they're stealing your work anyway. They're not going to pay you. Meanwhile, you tell the people who've been paying for decades that they can go fuck themselves. How about fuck you? How about we're tired of subscribing to 16 different broadcast outlets because you want to compartmentalize and own everything. How about you own my arse? There's enough real estate here for you to plant your lips on a nice sized hairy portion of it. I will prop my ankles up against the wall and you can lick my hairy bum. Representation matters. I concur. Okay? I concur with that sentiment. Representation does matter. Which is why, with The Little Mermaid, we had a red haired, blue eyed girl, a thing that is exceedingly rare in nature in the form of a cartoon. The whole point of animation, the reason that animated characters are so charismatic and call to the child in us, is because their features are hyperbolized. They are given exaggeration in order to give them liveliness, in order to make them pop on the screen and really appeal to our creative and artistic senses. It draws us in and makes us connect to these characters because they're larger than life. As we're looking for an escape from the dreary nastiness, from the brutal existence of day to day life. That's why we love our animations and our cartoons. It's why we love those things to begin with. Because you had these creatures and these people and these personalities that were underrepresented. I watched the Little Mermaid trailer and I wanted to put a fucking Remington in my mouth. It made me think of the last time I actually sat through more than 15 seconds of The View with Joy and Sunny and Whippy. All right, they've got these lovingly happy sounding names, but these women are death itself. The only view that I consider after watching them for more than a minute is the view that's the great big darkness down the bore barrel of a shotgun as I shove it into my mouth like a metal cock. The reason that these characters are so beloved is because they're exaggerated, because that's what animation does. It draws your attention to the character through exaggeration. That's part of the art form. And the fact that the House of Mouse doesn't understand that yet, after so many decades of having that be its primary lifeblood and what brought people in and attached them to these properties and to these franchises, to these characters, these stories, the reason they stick with you is not because by the time you're done watching it, you want to blow your fucking brains out and have the ladies of the View it's so bright and red and colorful. I wonder if that matches the shade of Sam Brinton's lipstick. The fucking todger over there stealing women's panties out of their fucking luggage at airports. It's because we attach to the character as bigger than what they're supposed to be. Did they never take a single lesson from the storytellers who have come before us? Clearly, they don't give a shite. They're willing to wrap these corpses around themselves, smear themselves in the blood of the fallen heroes and characters of old to try to pass themselves off as members of the zombie horde so they can claw their way to the box office and take their money and fucking split. If I'm not making any sense to those of you watching this later on, trust me, I'm not usually like this. But back to the whole idea of the representation thing. All right? If representation is so fucking important to you, then why do you have to take a red-headed, blue-eyed character, which is exceedingly rare in nature, and remove them and replace them to get the representation that you want? The whole notion of inclusion, according to Netflix and Disney, seems to me at least, and from the evidence that we have in front of us, because we have a whole library of material that Disney's pumped out into the marketplace like diarrhea. Every time they use the word diversity or inclusion, all it seems to mean is we're going to take characters who have been traditionally or originally presented as one thing and just completely change it so that rather than having a new and original character who actually represents the group who you feel is underrepresented, we're going to rob the people who had a character of that character and give it to them like a secondhand piece of clothing. What the fuck are you thinking? And yet, for the crime of creating a unique and brand new character who represents a group of people who are purportedly underrepresented in the media, Eric July, who created ISOM, had PayPal withhold his money that other people donated to him for his artistic endeavors. PayPal decided, well, we don't like that because you're not falling in line with what we believe the current values of current year should be. Go fuck yourselves. You are a payment processor. You're a middleman. All right. Your job is to take money that's being given from person X to person Y or company Y and transmit the money. That's all you're supposed to be there for. You are a tool. That's what you're supposed to exist for, not to be the arbiter of what's worthy or not of artistic merit. Kiss my dick. That's why I dropped PayPal. When they came out with this nonsense of they were going to assess a $2,500 fee for people utilizing the service in a way that they found harmful or disagreeable. Harmful to whom or to what? I'm sorry, but the last time I checked, PayPal was a payment processor in the business of moving money between interested parties. Keep your gob shut and perform the service. That's what you were established to do. I don't go to my stove upstairs and demand that it microwave me popcorn. You know why? Because that's not what the stove was built for. How you folks doing? Have I made enough of an ass of myself yet? Can I stop screaming? Is there any need for me to be so angry and aggressive? It seems a little out of character for me, doesn't it? Perhaps it is, sure. But everyone reaches a breaking point, a boiling point, at which point they say, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to be in trouble one way or another, and I may as well just be upfront and honest about it. Because rather than sit here and lie to people and say, oh no, this is perfectly fine, it's okay, while the whole thing collapses around us, I'd rather point out the reality of, hey, this whole fucking thing is going to collapse in on our heads. And I'd rather not find myself buried under a whole bunch of brick, bleeding to death, because I decided to stay quiet and keep the peace. That's not going to work for anybody involved. You know why? Because if I do that, we all die. And if the choice comes down to me being quiet to keep the peace so no one's offended, or raising my voice, pointing out that the house is on fire, and you tell me, oh, it's not on fire, or you tell me, better yet, the fire is actually good for us. We should stay in the fire. No, no, asshole. You can stay and burn to death. I'm getting the fuck out. I'm not going to let that ceiling collapse on my head. You know why? Because I've got shit to do. Period. And if you don't want to stick around and be there when that work is done, perfectly fine, and I respect your decision to get crushed by the collapsing ceiling. I'm not going to join you in that self-termination. And I won't shed a tear for you afterwards either. It's no longer worth it. It hasn't been worth it for a long time. I tend to be more agreeable with people. It's one of my flaws is I can be agreeable to a fault. And yes, I do get prickly and nasty with people when they push too far, and I tend to snap back in the most bizarre fashions. I'll give you a primary example. In my last job, well, no, 2 jobs ago, when I was first training to be a line cook, there was a young woman working in the kitchen with me, who continued to rightfully point out things that I was doing wrong, things that I got incorrect. And at first, I was helpful, or I was thankful for her input because she was correcting things that I was doing wrong. And I'm thankful for when I can be corrected so that I can do the right thing. That's great. However, once I had made the corrections and started doing things properly, she then moved on to say, well, I wouldn't have done it like that, or I wouldn't have done it like this, or I think it would be better if you did it like this. It's like, okay, you think it would be better, but I'm doing it right now, right? Correct? I've got the correct technique down. The food is being assembled in the proper order. It's cooked to temperature. It's presented on the platter in the right position. Well, yeah, but I would have. I don't want to hear it. All right, because at this point you're now just jumping on everything that I do because it's not how you would do it. All right, it's within the acceptable guidelines. I'm no longer failing to do my job. I'm just not doing it in the way that you would prefer. And you're not a supervisor. You're not a sous chef. You're not in charge of this kitchen. So back the fuck off. And she just kept needling and prodding and needling and prodding. And I let it go for about 2 weeks. And finally, one day, I'd had enough. And she said, I would have waited about another half a minute. I said, you know what? The next time that we see some water spill on the floor, I want you to walk on it like Jesus, because apparently you can do no fucking wrong. I am goddamn tired, sick and tired of you sitting here and poking and prodding me, lady. All right? I cannot wait until you fuck up because I'm going to land on you like a sumo wrestler and I'm going to scream until blood comes out of my throat and sprays you down like a sheet, like a fucking spray tan sheeting project while I howl at the moon like a baying fucking lunatic. Knock it off and back off. I got written up. I got written up and I got assigned to the other half of the kitchen because she refused to work in my presence. Because according to her, she felt threatened. Well, yeah, I imagine she did. Because I went from this guy who was just saying, okay, thanks, okay, being very quiet about it, to drop of a hat, snap of a finger, turn of a dime, lunatic, saying bizarre things, screaming in her face. Because that's how I tend to operate. I let things go for so long, and I finally hit that wall and bounce off. And it's sort of like Vega in the old 16-bit fighting game Street Fighter. The guy with the mask and the claw glove, all right, who yips and yells this weird high-pitched thing when he leaps off of the cage or off of the wall and bounces back to claw you in the face. I may look or seem mostly harmless until I bounce off of that wall. And then I'm coming back at you, screaming like a fucking loon with claws raised. And it won't be pretty at that point. I don't give a shit. When you've pushed me far enough, I no longer care how you feel about my reaction. Because the reaction is earned and warranted. And you don't get to shake your frickin' finger at me and say, oh, you're being a naughty boy. You're being too aggressive. You're being too hostile. No, motherfucker, I wasn't being hostile enough all along this stretch. All right? You set fire to the end of that wick and you walked away. You struck a match to the wick and you walked away. And then you only turned and paid attention when there was half an inch of that wick left and the whole thing blew. And that's what you chose to react to rather than owning up to the fact that you're the one who struck the match in the first fucking place. Don't stand there and bitch and complain when I snap at you because you finally pushed too far. Because that's the whole point, is who did the pushing to begin with? I didn't start this nonsense. You did. And if you don't care for my overreaction, don't give me cause to overreact. Because at that point, it's out of my hands. I'm not blameless. Yes, certainly. I'm the guilty party in reacting. But more than that, I am guilty of not having reacted calmer, quieter, but firmly before it got to that point. But let's not act like there's no blame on your part for this nonsense. Because if you hadn't been poking and prodding in the first place, we wouldn't have arrived here. Now, there is a fellow who really got my dander up about this too yesterday. A fellow who I thought I had left long in the dust behind me. For legal purposes, I'm not going to drop his name openly right now. But this was a gentleman who also works in the arena of indie horror, mostly short fiction, mostly short stories. And early on in his endeavors to start his own publishing house, he kind of asked me if I'd be interested in working with him. And I said, well, maybe. What other kind of people are you working with? And he rattled off some names from a writing group that we were both members of on Facebook. And I said, oh, well, I really like him. And oh, I really enjoy her work. Her stories are pretty good here and there. And I was like, you know what? These are some solid people. Sure, I'm very willing and open to the idea of working with you and these folks as part of the opening gambit of stories in an anthology or a collection, or a serialized release series. Sure, let's work together. Let's hammer some things out. And he said, that's great. That's fantastic. As kind of a way to open things up, because you'd be brand new to our group, all I'd need from you at first is for you to read a couple of stories and review them. Just do some quick write-ups. And I said, okay, what's the first one you would want me to read and provide a review for? And he said, okay, well, here's one of my stories. And I said, okay, before I read it, I'm going to let you know, full disclosure, I'm going to be honest about my reception of this story, my perception of it. I might not like it. And I'm not going to hold your hand about it. I'm going to be honest. And he said, that's fine. I wouldn't expect anything else. And I read his story, and it was complete gutter trash. And I told him as much. And I made a video review of the story and dragged him through the mud because this story was garbage. It was utter shite. Poorly written, two-dimensional characters, relied more on gratuitous graphic sex than actual characterization, and was little more than a 1,600-word written smut piece without any decent action sequencing and with no description of the characters that could give me more than a two-dimensional view of them. And he was obviously not pleased. And he messaged me through Facebook Messenger. He's like, what the fuck, man? You completely dragged me. You dogged me on this. And I said, look, buddy, this was a terrible story. Please tell me you sent this to me as a joke, or that this is one of your older works and now you want to send me the real story to show how much you've improved since your early days. Because I got to tell you, folks, some of my earlier work makes me cringe. I cannot believe that someone actually took a chance on me back then and published my first couple of fantasy novels. Because when I look back at them right now, I think to myself, holy God, I do so much better work now. I've identified characters in my own early writings that were absolutely barely three-dimensional, bordering on two-dimensional, almost wooden cutouts. And some of them had character traits that were so just generic and so loaded with tropes of the genre that I could easily poke at it and go, "Oh my God, somebody else did this so much better so long ago." Hey Neville, how you doing? Um, so even in my own work, I've identified how I've gotten much better at certain aspects of characterization and character development over the years. So that was my hope, was that this fellow had given me an early piece of his and then was going to send me a newer piece to show how much he had grown. And I said, look, I'll give him the name just Roger. Just it's not his real name. We're just going to use that as a placeholder. I said, Roger, surely you're kidding me with me, right? This was not the story you really wanted me to read and review, right? And if that's the case, I'll take the video down. That's fine. It's like, no, that was the story I wanted you to review. That's going to be the kickoff story for this series. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is Drek. I'm not going to give this 5 stars. I'm not going to go on to Amazon and give this a high review. Do you actually want me to review this work? And he said, you know what? Fuck you. I don't want you in this project. You don't deserve to work with me. And I should have just let it drop right there. I should have just said, you know what? This is not worth the headache. I'm just going to pull away and say, nah, we're done. But instead, what I ended up doing was writing out word for word on his Amazon's story listing on the Amazon Marketplace my review of that story. Just completely dragging it, annihilating it, pointing out how this was a sloppy amateur hour erotica written by someone with the mentality of a 9th or 10th grader without the benefit of spell check. And he was pissed. He was quite pissed. Understandably so. Because I raked him to the dogs and back. But he deserved it. Because this story was utter garbage. And he had asked for my review, for my take on it. And I warned him, I'm going to be honest. I'm not just going to plug or promote your story because I happen to want to be involved with your startup publishing house. That would not be honest. And it would not be in the interest of the art of narrative and genre fiction to just slap a 5-star review on this thing and say it was good. You should buy it. You should check it out. Oh, by the way, conflict of interest and full disclosure, I happen to be working with this gentleman and will have my own story out soon under his banner. No, that's not how you operate. Howdy there, Brooke. Yeah, I wasn't very good about sharing a link to this this broadcast. Sorry about that. How you doing, Brooke? So he and I parted ways, obviously for the best. Mind you, this was about 6-7 years ago. Fast forward to a few days ago. Thank you, Cortex, for sharing the live. I appreciate that, brother. This was impromptu, kind of off the cuff, because I happen to have the available time to do it right now. So I much appreciate you giving me the leg up on that. You know what? Cortex and I have to sit down and hammer out details on a day and time to do some more backrooms material. So fast forward to a couple of days ago. And this gentleman has made a full circle return back into my orbit again. And this is where I ended up kind of coming up against it with regards to the whole sensitivity readers thing. Turns out Amazon, in their infinite fucking wisdom, has decided to temporarily, we're not sure for how long, unlist two of my stories currently on sale through Amazon's online marketplace. Now, they've done this to me before with these exact same two stories. And I, being curious, that's right, no stealing my Lucky Charms, Brooke. You tell them. They're my Lucky Charms. Fucking leprechaun. General Mills owes me a goddamn royalty check. Anyway. This I found peculiar. I thought, this is strange. I thought we had already gone through this nonsense. I thought we had done away, we had done away with the problem that had Amazon taking my story down the first time. This is the second time it's happening, and they didn't just take down the story they had a problem with before, they took down another story. So I reached out to Amazon yesterday and I asked, why have these two stories been pulled down on your for sale listing? And it took a couple of hours before someone finally got back to me and said, well, one of our sensitivity readers looked through the manuscript and sounded the alarm on a couple of red flag passages in these stories. And I thought, okay, that's a bit strange. They were produced through the KDP program, which means you're not supposed to have anyone there trying to edit the material. Did someone bring this to your attention from the outside? And the individual I was speaking to said, yes, actually, it was brought to our attention from a third party who we occasionally contract with and named this gentleman's publishing outfit. And I said, are you fucking serious? I had a major problem with this guy about 6-7 years ago because I wasn't going to kiss his arse and give his piece of garbage story an automatic 5-star review because it didn't deserve it, because it was a piece of shite. So this person who I had a previous artistic schism with, because I wouldn't violate my own ethical standards for his business purposes to try and get a quick buck out of a terribly written story, because I called him on his bullshit. Now, 6-7 years later, he's going to try and reduce my capacity to have my material on your marketplace? Fuck you then. If you want to take the titles down, that's fine. That's your decision. That's gonna have to stand. I don't really have much in the way of being able to fight against that decision. But if you continue to keep the material down because of what this fucking lying little fink decided to do in holding a 7-year grudge against me, because I wouldn't lie for his benefit, if that's the decision you want to make, I'm going to start taking down every title I have from your marketplace. I don't sell that many copies of anything anyway. I'm not a household name. I don't make a great deal of money off of my books, but I love telling stories. That's what I do. I'm a Calkins. We tell stories. That's what I am known for. If I'm known at all, it's for my love of genre fiction and creating it and sharing it with any audience that's willing to indulge and give me their time and attention for it. The art itself deserves praise and promotion. The art of narrative deserves to be upheld and deserves to be lovingly handled and presented to whoever will give it the time it deserves. It doesn't deserve to be used as nothing more than a cash cow. If it can earn someone a living, great. Good for them. Kudos to them. I'm not that person. And if someone is going to say, well, I don't like what you did to me, or that you didn't help me lie my way into getting money I don't deserve, and they're going to get my work removed years later because no one at Amazon has 3 brain cells to click together to recognize what the fuck is going on, then they can kiss my ass too. And I will begin removing my titles from Amazon's marketplace where I am legally and contractually able to. Now, there are a number of titles that I cannot remove from Amazon's marketplace because I do not contractually and legally have the capacity to do that. Those books which were published through um, Untreed Reads and through Books for a Buck, I don't have the legal right to pull those titles from Amazon's marketplace. I have no right to that because that's the purview of my publishers and my editors. That's their realm. I have a contract, a binding contract with them. And they took a chance on me, and I'm not going to deny them the ability to try and make up for the investment in time and effort that they sunk into me and my career as it is. It's not much of a career, but it's something. It wouldn't be right of me to deny them that. They did everything in their power to help me grow as a storyteller as well. You know, Mr. Priest and Mr. Hartman, KD, God rest her, may she rest in peace, and Miss Jacobson, those people all looked at my material and looked at me and said, here's a guy who really loves fantasy and horror fiction, and he creates pretty good material. So we're going to take a chance on this guy, and we're going to sign him to a contract. Now, mind you, there is a clause in that contract that says as long as I submit to them in writing a reasonable request for them to remove those books from their catalog, that they will do so on my behalf. But ethically, I would not feel right doing that to them because none of those titles have been challenged by anyone through the Amazon marketplace. And those titles are still in good standing. So I'm not going to do that to them. Those are good people. And I made an agreement with them. And I'm going to stand by it. They deserve nothing less from me. They deserve more from me, truth be told. I don't make a strong effort to promote my material outside of a few small circles. I'm not great about it. I'm not a businessman. I'm just a story wonk. That's about it. But Amazon, with regards to those stories that I have produced through their KDP program or that I have just direct distributed to Amazon through my own publishing independent avenue and tools, no, they can go fuck off. I'm going to start removing those titles. I'll find another way to get those stories out there. And if it means I end up giving them away for free, then so be it. Someone has to take the hit. Someone has to take the hit, and it may as well be me. I'm not the best storyteller out there. Okay? I'm more than willing to admit that. I'm talented, sure. And to fluff my own ego a little bit, I'd say I'm probably in the top 10 to 12%. But it's only the top 3% who make a living out of this kind of thing, man. And I'm not in that echelon. I'm just not. I've got to be honest with myself about that, and I'll be honest with you folks about that. Would I love to make a living as a storyteller of genre fiction? Fuck yes, that would be the dream. That or being an editor, so I constantly have new stuff to read. Um, because I'm too much of a fucking bookworm. Man, if I could make a decent living as an editor or an acquisitions editor, whoo, that'd be great. I'd be happy as a fat fucking pig. But all that aside, the point being, someone has to take the hit, and it may as well be me, because people need material to entertain themselves, to promote some thoughtful discussion, and to have something there as an alternative to mainstream entertainment. Um, don't worry about it, Brooke. You're not being selfish. Um, and thank you, Cortex. I appreciate the support, brother. Um, but and this is something that's missing from a lot of the folks who are in independent entertainment, but who have a decent sized following. Is they are right on many of them are right on the cusp of being able to make a living out of this. For instance, two YouTubers who I highly recommend you go and subscribe to and check out their material, because these two gentlemen are absolute masters of narrative and character analysis. Shady Do Rags and Savage Books. Savage Books, I got to tell you, I'm a little jealous of that guy because he is an editor for a publishing house. That's his job. He's an editor. So he gets constant new feeds of new material to read, and he gets paid to do it. He is paid to read and offer feedback to other authors. I mean, I am a little green with envy towards that fellow, and he's clearly good at what he does because he's been doing it for a while. Yeah, I will post those, Brooke. I will post those in the chat. Um, Shady Do Rags. I think I've got that spelled right. I might have it wrong, but just search in YouTube and he should come up. He does his character for the narration sections of his video is an animated fellow with these like thick black sunglasses. He's easy enough to identify once you find him. And the other fellow is Savage Books. Um, they are both fantastic analysts of character and narrative, and they deserve every subscriber and every bit of love they can get. And they are two individuals who are right on the cusp of being able to make a living doing what they're doing. Um, shit, I gotta. Damn it. Fuck. All right, hold on a second. Um, I will make you a mod in a moment here. Onto YouTube. It's all still fairly new to me. I apologize. Because I'm doing StreamYard, so I gotta. All right. My channel. Would it be under settings? Now, the thing is, though, Cortex, I don't usually have YouTube open on my laptop while I'm streaming. I just go directly through StreamYard. All right. Next to your names. All I have is options is put user in timeout and block user on Streamlabs or StreamYard. Is this something I have to do in? Okay, go to YouTube and view your live. All right. I just hope this doesn't Ah, I hate hearing my own voice. Mute that. There we go. All right. Oh dear God. All right. There we go. There we go. Cortex, you are now a managing moderator. Brooke, you are a moderator. And where the hell are you, Scuba? There we go. There we go. I have added you three as moderators. There we go. Hello, Miss Luck. Thanks for stopping in. Yes, okay, you've got them. Thank you, Brooke. Thank you. Share those out for certain. That's Savage Books, the fellow who is an editor. He's a lucky, lucky man. And this is Shady Do Rags. These guys are top tier analysts of character and narrative. They deserve more love. And like I said, I think they're both really just like on the cusp of being able to m- make a living in terms of their output on YouTube. And they definitely are more than deserving of the praise that they get. Um, Back to what I was saying with regards to um, what I do. Being in the top 10% of storytellers in terms of talent and work ethic, I will likely never make a living off of it. But that doesn't mean that I should stop because people need alternatives. They need entertainment that is not made for the masses per se, especially not the modern audience masses. Those people can kick fucking bricks. I'm sorry. I'm tired of them. But someone needs to present that material for the alternative audience, for people who are clamoring for something different in genre fiction, or maybe not different per se, because I will admit, um, you know, uh, I do a lot of swords and sorcery, a lot of adventure, fantasy, particularly my Temerarian tales. It's adventure fantasy. Oh yes, no negativity in our vicinity. Thank you guys. I appreciate that. Um, you know, I prefer to think that the material that I offer to people is there for them not just to consume blindly, because I do want to provoke some thought with my material, whether it be fantasy or horror. Particularly in the horror realm, I've been leaning more towards. I try not to be ham fisted with my messaging, but there was a horror short story from my Amelia City series that I wrote a couple of years ago, and I ultimately ended up doing video or audiobook readings of them um, on my BitChute channel, and I think I uploaded them to my Rumble channel. I don't remember if I have them here on my YouTube channel or not. If not, then I have to upload those here. Um, but the story is effectively, damn it, Byron. Um, the story has effectively got an undertone message throughout it that I felt was really missing. My Rumble handle is the same as my handle here, Brooke. It's Byron Osidious. That's where I am across all boards. On BitChute, it's Byron Osidious. On Rumble, it's Byron Osidious. Um, you take the clip and you do with it what you want. I'll tell you what. Um, but this Amelia City story has an underlying message to it. And it took a while for anybody When I first uploaded it in text format, it was on my Substack. And it took almost half a year sitting on my Substack before somebody finally pointed out, hey, was this story's message kind of quietly a pro life story? And I said, yes, yes, it is. It took half a year of that story being available for view on my Substack. It had been read and viewed 56 times. That's not a lot, but it's a decent, it's a modest sized audience for a small timer like me. I felt great about that. Having 56 different people having taken the time to read that story and take away from it entertainment value, or in this one individual's case, it actually provoked some deeper thought. And when he asked for clarification of, hey, was this a pro life story, a pro life message? I was able to say, yes, yes, it was. Was it too obvious? And he said, no, but it was there if you were careful to look for it. Why weren't you a little bit more obvious about it? And I responded, that's not the point. You're not supposed to be ham-fisted with it. Good narrative, properly constructed narrative, doesn't lecture its audience. It offers, hey, maybe consider this. Maybe. And then the audience, if they choose to, they can follow it up with their own curiosity. They can either interpret it how they would like to and take away what message and meaning they want. That's perfectly okay, so long as they don't try to browbeat other people with their interpretation of the material. That way lies madness. That's the path of Roland Barthes' Death of the Author, and that can go screw. It's got some great analytical tools, sure, but when the author is alive and available for comment, clarification rules over interpretation every time. I wish they still taught that at university. They don't. No, instead at university, what they teach these kids is, well, whatever message you take from it, that's what it means to you. That's your truth. Here's a truth for you. If I smash you in the forehead with a fucking hammer, it's gonna hurt, maybe kill you. But what if I decide that my truth is that that's perfectly acceptable behavior from somebody? Does that change the fact that it's still wrong and illegal? That's my truth. Fuck your truth. Because the fact of the matter is, after I've smacked you in the forehead with that hammer, you're still going down like a sack of shit. I'm trying not to get heated again. I was very angry at the beginning of this broadcast. And if you came in late and you didn't see the first half, I would encourage you later on to go ahead and take a look and realize that the lunatic sitting on camera right now is not the most stable personality online. Not by a long shot. I'm not an absolute wackadoo, like some people. But, yes, yes, very good. Let the anger flow through you, young Skywalker. This shall be my greatest victory. You're not helping. And I think of it, honestly, oftentimes, Cortex, in those moments, as I'm having a Frank moment. I am having a Frank Castle moment of, you know what? Fuck it. Let's go scorched earth. Let's just bleed it out. Cut the throat on that sacred cow and let it bleed. I've used a lot of violent language and imagery in this broadcast. Much more so than I usually do, unless I am reading a piece of fiction that I have written. I get a lot of my aggression out in my writing. Trust me, I get a lot of nonsense out of my skull too. I mean, there was this this piece that I wrote and recorded this morning. I don't know how many of you saw that video on my channel this morning about the gorilla on Wall Street, but I wrote that up really quick this morning, shortly after having my first cup of coffee, and I thought, well, here's a bit of nonsense and absurdity that I can just share with people, and I don't really give a shite. Um, I just threw it out there, like, yeah, whatever, it's fun. It's a bit of absurdity. We all deserve to have a little bit of fun, especially early in the morning with something like that. And so I just threw it out there. Um, but yeah, the beginning of this broadcast was a lot of my inner Frank leaching out into the world, and I screamed quite a bit. And I'm sorry if I blow out anybody's eardrums in that early section, but these things need to be said. They have to be, because otherwise I'm not being honest with you. And I'm not the best Christian by a long shot. But one of the things I can do as a Christian man is try to be honest with you folks about what it is I'm thinking and where it is I'm coming from. Particularly when it comes to things like these sensitivity readers in the publishing houses and Disney and Warner Brothers and everything like that. What they are doing to the art of storytelling it's sacrilege. It's absolute sacrilege. They are corrupting what it means to be a storyteller. And speaking of storytellers, and the reference we made to Palpatine and Star Wars, the Star Wars Storytellers Group, this collective of between 20 and 30 young authors, young writers, and artists who've been working at Disney Star Wars on their various new franchises and new properties like the High Republic. The reason why the High Republic has crashed and burned so fucking hard is because the people who are working in this Star Wars writers group have no idea what it means to take the source mythology and to grapple with and fully comprehend the meaning behind the various bits of imagery, symbology, and mythological roots of the narrative that George Lucas created back in the 60s and 70s. They don't understand any of that source material. And they don't want to. They refuse to. Because, that's old-timey, and it's the patriarchy, and it's racist and sexist. It's couched in old stories that have survived the centuries and millennia. There's a reason those stories survive, all right? Just like there's a reason why alligators and crocodiles survived the KT extinction event. You know why? Because nothing will kill those fucking dinosaurs. They survive everything. Cockroaches, too. When the nukes finally do drop, there's 3 life forms that for guaranteed are going to survive. Crocodiles / alligators. They're related, close enough, and I'm not a zoologist, so I'll count them as 1. Fuck you. 2, mosquitoes. I don't know why, but I suspect those little nasty buggers are like lawyers. They will somehow avoid the most disastrous, deleterious effects of what we do to each other. And cockroaches, they'll survive the bombs. Everything else, question mark. But the story structures have survived for time out of mind because they appeal to something in our collective unconscious. And Carl Jung touched upon this in his book Ion. He touched upon archetypes and the character traits that are universal throughout history. No matter the culture, no matter the heritage, no matter the religion, the creed, the sex, the speciation, these stories are universal. There's something in them that holds true no matter what. and you can't deny that reality, because to deny it is death. It's akin to a deer traipsing through the forest and coming upon a pack of wolves surrounding it. The deer doesn't get to say, I identify as a wolf, you cannot eat me. No, because that deer either runs for dear fucking life or it gets turned into lunch. You can't deny reality. These things continue to survive because they work. And when you fuck with that program, the resulting product dies, and you shouldn't be surprised when it does. Just from the little bit I've read so far, Cortex, no. Warhammer is it's as far from that as you could possibly get. But yeah, again, I keep going back to this deep-seated rage with the current state of storytelling. What has been done to the art? It's been bent over a barrel and fucked dry. No flowers, no chocolates, not even any lube, just bent over and straight up the poop chute. No apologies, no card in the morning. You know. And I know I'm being graphic, and I recognize this is not typically in keeping with who I am in my presentation most of the time. I get that. And that may be off putting to some folks. You know, video dropping. Did you upload a video, Brooke? Something new from our fellows in the community? And by the way, folks, if you have material of your own to promote, to drop, to link to, by all means, do so. I am not a big player in this community. I am sort of in the outskirts of it, and I appreciate the support you folks are always rather lovingly showing me. I deeply appreciate that. So, you know, by all means, share the material as you would. I'm not going to hold that against anyone. Uh-oh. I assume that I'll have to look at that a little bit, actually shortly here, because I am going to be wrapping this up here in a minute or two here. So yeah, drop links, drop shares, any of your videos or any of your works. Also, if you find me on Facebook or on Minds, I use my own name. I don't go. It's one of the only places online that I don't go by Byron Insidious is my Minds account. I go by Joshua Calkins Trilogy there, my full legal name, just without the hyphen. What was I getting at? Sorry, I got off track there. But I'm not the biggest member of this community. And I am always thankful for the support you folks show me. But always share links to each other's material too, either on my pages, if you find me on Facebook, or you find me on Twitter. On Twitter, actually, I don't go by Byron Insidious there either, because I used to have, years ago, I had the Byron Insidious Twitter account, and I lost privileges to it by way of forgetting my password. So I'm on there as just myself. Hold up. I don't have the app on my phone because Twitter can be a fucking sinkhole, I'll tell you that much. And if I'm being honest with myself, I don't remember my Twitter handle right off the top of my head because I don't use it very frequently. Okay, I am at Calkins Trilogy on Twitter. Okay. If you find me there, all right. There we go. Come on. I'm going to pull this up now. I'm taking too much time to do this. On Minds, I'm at Joshua Culkin's Trilogy on Minds, which is another social networking site. That's an alternative to Facebook and what have you. And what's another place that I can routinely be found? Oh, all right. I rarely ever use it, but I'm on Truth Social as well as Byron of Sidious. Okay. I hardly ever use Truth, but I'm on there for whatever godforsaken reason. Never used the damn thing. And on Facebook, I'm under my own name, Joshua T. Culkin's Trilogy. Okay. Yeah. Married to Danny, contributing writer at the Howard Bloom Institute. That was another thing that this fucking, again, I'll just call him Roger. Roger reached out to the Howard Bloom Institute and tried to get Mr. Bloom to remove me from the Howard Bloom Institute as a contributor. He personally reached out and sent an email to Mr. Bloom telling him that I am a duplicitous, untrustworthy liar, that I break contractual agreements with people. No, motherfucker, I never signed an agreement or a contract with you. Before I could even get to that step to sign a contract with you, I called you on your bullshit. I told you your story was garbage. You wanted me to lie and give it 5 stars on Amazon. I refused to be your fucking play toy. I refused to play along with your unethical, dishonest fucking game. And I told you no. And because I told you no 6-7 years ago that I would not lie for your benefit, for your financial gain, and to rob people of their hard-earned money in exchange for terrible writing, because I wouldn't lie for you, you try to turn around and bend me over the barrel? Fuck you. Anyway, anywhere that you bump into me online, on Minds, on Twitter, Facebook, Truth Social, wherever you bump into me, feel free to use that space to promote your own material, to promote the material of your friends and loved ones, and people who you believe are worthy and deserving of praise and exposure, because I guarantee you, the folks who you find intriguing or worthy of time and attention more than likely are and aren't getting the promotion that they deserve. Okay? Help them out in any way, shape, or form you can. Help yourselves out in any way, shape, or form that you can. Because only by doing that can we create a space of artistic endeavor that is outside of the absolute twat waffle nonsense that has been served up to us as a steaming platter of shit and told, eat the turd sandwich. No, we don't want to eat the turd sandwich anymore. Thank you, Disney. Thank you, Warner Brothers. Thank you, Netflix. We don't want your pureed garbage that came out of your poop chute. We want something different. We want something that is artistically honest and that has integrity, that has our interests as consumers looking to be entertained, maybe be provoked into some thoughtful discussion and conversation. And maybe some of the material will kind of have some of those elements that we don't agree with. But at least it's not lecturing us and telling us that we're evil, terrible people. Don't tell your audience that they're pieces of shit. Don't do it. Because they're the ones who are providing you with a platform to tell your story. If you want your audience to enjoy the material, don't browbeat them the entire time they're sitting there reading or watching it. Thank you, Miss Luck. And thank you, Brooke, for the ad on Rumble. With any luck, maybe at some point I'll uh, be able to upload there more frequently or stream to Rumble. Um, you have to have 25 subscribers at minimum in order to stream to Rumble. I'm not quite there yet, but I haven't spent a great deal of time promoting my Rumble channel. So, you know, eventually I'll get there, but I don't focus on it a great deal. I focus on what I have access to for the time being. Let's just use your material, make use of the materials you have on hand, make use of your resources. I would agree with that, Brick. We should all have a chit chat at some point, all of us together. But anywho, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up now. Before I get going out, really quick, does anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns that I could possibly answer or address briefly? Because I don't want this to all just be a complete screed from me, just kind of grumbling and growling at everybody. And I'm not great at keeping track with the entirety of the chat. I'm very amateur hour at this. Well, unfortunately, I got to work today, Brooke. I had to work in a couple of hours. Thank you, Cortex. Appreciate that, brother. Thank you, Brooke. I can only be me. I have no options, unfortunately, other than to be me. Fortunately, actually, because the next kiddo is on the way come June. Appreciate that, Brooke. But yeah, the last kiddo coming in June. My wife's due date is June 12th. And what's really nice about this this doctor and the hospital that we're going to um, is if she does not go into labor. Uh, Thanks, Brooke. um, if she doesn't go into labor by the morning of June 12th, we get to go in and have her induced. Well, there's actually, Miss Look, there's one way to do it. Now, are you referring to how do you stop a YouTube creator from acting worse than a kindergartner, or are you talking about someone in the chat? Because let's get that clarified first. Thank you, Brooke. We are hoping for. I mean, her recovery with both of the boys was pretty quick. But yeah, Cortex, that was kind of what I was thinking is if it's a YouTuber who is behaving more childish than a kindergartner in the chat, just pay them no mind. Mute them. Because you can mute people without kicking them from the show. Or like if it's a video and you've got a comment troll who's just constantly coming in and leaving you these nasty comments and feedback, just let it be there and just be like, whatever. Okay, content wise, if it's a content creator, then yes, Cortex hits on it exactly. Don't watch their material. They will dry up. It's much like these, and I'm going to use some more foul language here. And I'm not going to be. Damn ears. These things are too tight on my fucking head. I can't loosen them up any further. Of course, I've got this big fat fucking head, and the tooth infection is causing my gum to swell. But anyway, I've I view a lot of this through the lens of this recent trend of these. The term that there's a fellow on here who, um, his name is the Quartering, Jeremy Hambley, um, and he uses the term gymfluencers, which I think is a nice little, you know, linguistic trick. I like that. Wordplay is always appreciated by me. These gym influencers, these girls who get all painted up and gussied up to go to the gym and film themselves working out, usually as window dressing for to promote their OnlyFans accounts and what have you. Um, a lot of these attention whores, because that's what they are. All right, they are attention whores. When you have someone on YouTube or on Rumble or any similar site that is acting like an absolute child and doing anything and everything in their power to get eyeballs on themselves because that is their version of gaining notoriety. And if that is how they validate their own existence, is with views, clicks, and likes, if you starve them of that attention, they'll stop doing what they're doing. It's like dealing with a child. It's no different. When you've got a fractious kid who's behaving like an absolute monster, just stop feeding into it. Cease to respond to it in any way, shape, or form, positively or negatively. And a child, is smart enough to recognize, oh, this isn't getting me what I want one way or the other. I don't feel good or bad about this. Because the thing about negative behavior or negative interactions is it's still an interaction. When the child misbehaves and you yell at them and holler and scream at them, it's still an interaction. You're still feeding into the input, and they're getting some reaction out of you. And later on in life, they're going to crave that negative attention or that negative feedback. That's going to give them a jolly. It's going to give them a rev. They're going to feel something, and they're going to attach themselves to that signal. Now, that's no good. You have to lay down the law. Yes, you have to lay down the law with your children, but you don't have to do it like a monster. Part of the way you can lay down the law is when they do something foolish, remove those surroundings that would cause them to be injured by engaging in that foolishness, make it physically safe, and then walk away. Walk away. Because then, if they're not at risk of self injury, then the only thing they have left is, oh, I've just done this thing and nobody cares. There's no input, there's no stimuli to respond to. Children are looking for a response, regardless of the affectation or alignment of that response, be it positive or negative. They're looking for some kind of response. And when they don't get any response, they don't know how to process it. And they go, okay, I didn't get anything out of doing this thing. I got literally nothing. And even a small child will come to the recognition, the realization that if I do this thing, I get literally nothing from it. But they're young. So their whole life experience is, I got to get something out of what I'm doing. Well, what if I do this thing and it's a positive thing? That's when you give them praise. That's when you give them thanks within reason. because I'm not fond of the whole participation trophy bullshit. Give them the appropriate level of praise and acknowledgement. And then say, okay, let's go on about our business and live our lives and do what we're doing. You know, it's like these kids who, you know, and I've told I've had to have this unfortunate conversation with my daughter recently, who, um, she was having kind of this contest back and forth with one of her friends in her class. They're both drawing these like comic strip panels and comparing their comic strips. And she showed me her own comic strip, and then she showed me the one that her friend drew. Um, and she was like, "Well, what do you think, Dad?" And I was like, "Well, I like them both, but your friend Mira, she's got tremendous um, color control. Her grasp of colors and contrast and shadows is really phenomenal." And my daughter was just like, "Oh, so do you think it's better than mine?" I said, "Well, her shadow work is better than yours, but that doesn't mean that what you drew isn't good. If you want to get better, look at your friend Mira's comic strip here. And if you want to do better shadows, ask her how she did hers, how she figured out how to make shadows work in her drawings, and learn from that and build on your own material so that you can pick up a skill set that you don't currently have." Although I will say, your story in your comic strip is funnier than your friend Mira's. And she was like, "Well, I like being silly." I was like, "That's perfectly fine. You're a silly kid. You like telling silly stories and jokes. That's your strong suit. That's where you work best. Maybe you could teach her how to do that kind of thing." And she said, "Well, Mira doesn't like being silly." I'm like, "Okay, well, maybe that's just not her thing. That's not her strong suit. That's fine too. That means that's your strength, and that's what makes your story, your comic strip, unique as opposed to hers." Okay? Don't lose sight of what you do well, but take those things that you don't do as well, that this other artist friend of yours does well. If you want to incorporate it into your work to enhance and improve your technique and your work, do that. But only if you think it won't harm what makes your style unique. Because if you think it doesn't belong there, then it doesn't belong there. If that thing that you admire about her work is something that you think would not work well or fit right with your style, then don't do it. Because then you're not trying to improve your own work. Then you're trying to copy somebody else's just because you think it'll get higher praise. And that's no way to work as an artist. And she kind of said, "Oh, okay, I get that. Yeah, her shadow work is a lot better than mine, but I'm sillier. So that works." And it was boom, done. She had no more megrims or problems, no more headache with it. She stopped feeling bad about it and identified that her own style would actually be improved if she figured out how to do some of that shadow work in her drawings. So she's going to try and get Mira to teach her how to do those things in her own drawings. I'm not personally sure if it'll work one way or the other. I'll have to find out when she's done a little bit more work. The point being that in that case, I had to give her the hard reality of, yeah, I think they're both good, but here's something your friend does better than you. I'm her dad. I didn't like saying that, but it was my observation. And she asked me for my honest opinion, and I gave it to her. I'm not going to lie to my kid. And I think it works out for the better for her, honestly. Hey, main girl. So, anyhow, sorry, that was a very long winded answer to a question about how people behave on YouTube. And I wound up going off on another tangent for a good 15, 20 minutes there because that's what I tend to do. I have a bad habit of doing that. But anyhow, um, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for coming in. I'd like to thank Brooke once again for having shared the links um, to everybody's channel and to Shady Do Rags and to Savage Books. Those guys, like I said, always worthy of checking out and giving them some love and attention. Um, I will check that out, Brooke, when I get the opportunity after I grab lunch. And if there's nothing else for the time, I gotta. Why does this fucking thing always show up? Last second there. All right, and don't forget, Brooke, to also yes, there you go. Link to Cortex. Um, hello, Neville. You're back just in time for me to wrap things up. Sorry about that, brother. Um, but always uh, share your love of each other, the fellowship that we have here, and not to be. I don't want to. I don't want to come across as some kind of religious figure because I'm not. Like I said, I'm not a great Christian. I'm not a good Christian that way. But there are things that we can definitely learn from certain Christian tenets, such as fellowship. Um, and one of the best things about fellowship is that it doesn't have to come from any one specific realm of religion or spirituality. Fellowship is community. It is the it is kef. Kef is a concept in Stephen King's Dark Tower series of novels. It means the sharing of water, the sharing of our essence and our positive influence and feelings towards one another. So let us share in that fellowship with each other, always and ever, wherever we can. Promote one another, share with one another, love one another in any way that you can, and any way that does not bring harm to yourself or to any other innocent person. And I understand that sometimes even the most level headed people, as I try to be most times, with the exception of the beginning of this show, um, you will understand that as long as we have that appreciation of one another, regardless of what downturns we have in this life day to day, we can lift one another up and give each other just that little bit of, hey, I'm not where you're at right now, but I've been where you've been. And I appreciate everything that you're able to do, no matter how little or how much it may seem right now. Um, anyhow, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I hope that you take care of yourselves. And I ask that, as always, you keep reading.